Okay, so here we're going to start looking at the superior wall. So the superior wall of the orbit, we already saw what bone was predominant over there, your frontal bone. Okay, so the superior wall is made up of the frontal bone. And what is this area of the frontal bone that we call it as? That we call it as orbital surface, right? So the first part in the superior wall which we are going to mark is the orbital surface of frontal bone. Okay, and now you see this area, yellow color bone. What did I tell you this was? This was the lesser wing of sphenoid, right? That is also in the superior portion only. See, this entire thing is in the superior position. So this part is also coming in the superior wall. That will be your lesser wing of sphenoid. Okay, so that is your first wall, that is your superior wall. Okay, now we saw the superior wall. I'll just write here superior wall, that is your orbital surface of frontal bone and your lesser wing of sphenoid. Okay, now moving on to the second wall, that is going to be your lateral wall. Oh no, sorry, second we will look at the lateral wall itself. So lateral wall is this wall, right? So over here, what is the bone that you can see? This is your zygomatic bone, right? This orange color bone, this is your zygomatic bone. So your lateral wall is entirely made up of your zygomatic bone, the boundary, right? And see, this is also the lateral side, right? And this was what? This was the greater wing of sphenoid bone. Remember, greater wing of sphenoid bone. Okay, so your lateral wall means the side wall, right? The side wall is made up of zygomatic bone, orbital surface, and your greater wing of sphenoid. Okay, so I will just write here your lateral wall. It is made up of, again, orbital surface of zygomatic bone plus your greater wing of sphenoid. Okay, now that's two borders. Now, moving on to the next border, we will look at the inferior wall. Okay, so inferior wall is over one sec. Okay, it's over here, right? So the inferior wall, what all you can see again, the major part, we have the one sec. Okay, so the inferior wall, we have this bone, right? What is this bone? That is your maxilla. Okay, again, that is the maxilla, which surface? Orbital surface. Okay, all bones that have an orbital surface, your frontal bone, your zygomatic bone, sorry, your sphenoid bone, your zygomatic bone, your maxilla, your ethmoid, everything will be present in the orbital surface, right? So your inferior wall is actually made up of what? It is made up of maxilla orbital surface. And actually, at the inferior part, when we zoom in, I forgot to mention one bone previously. Over here, see, can you see this is the inferior surface, right? In the inferior surface, what do we have? Look here. We have the maxilla here, right? And you see this little purple color bone over here, and it has a vertical aspect also. That is your palatine bone. Okay, so the orbital surface of the palatine bone is also going to be present over there. So your inferior wall, your inferior wall is made up of what bones? First, you have the maxilla, orbital surface, and then you have the palatine bone, again orbital process. Okay, so that is the inferior wall. Now, what wall is left? Only one wall is left. That is your medial wall. Okay, now this wall is a bit complicated. It has a lot of aspects. So pay attention here. In the medial wall, first I'm again going to write down the name of the bones which are present over there. And then we will go on to the uh, area where it is. Okay, so I'm going to start from the posterior side. Okay, from the posterior side, what is this? We have the ethmoid, right? This is the ethmoid bone. Okay, and we already established that this was the lacrimal bone, right? And we have the body of the sphenoid bone over here. Okay, and then um, we have the nasal bone over here, and we have the frontal process also. Frontal process. Frontal process is a part of the maxilla bone. Okay, this bone. Understanding the medial wall, we have the ethmoid bone, we have the body of the sphenoid bone, we have the lacrimal bone, we have the frontal process, and then we have the nasal bone over here. So now I will tell you what all are the actual regions of these bones that are going to articulate. In the ethmoid bone, we have the orbital plate. Okay, so now I'm writing the medial wall. In the medial wall, the first one is orbital plate of ethmoid, that is this one over here, number one. Number two, we have sphenoid, sorry, the spelling is sphenoid bone, and there it is going to be the body. Okay, it is the body. So that is number two over here. Okay, and then we have the third bone, which is going to be your lacrimal bone, which is over here. This, sorry, third, number three over here. Okay, and then number four, we have the frontal process of maxilla, which is over here. And the five, I'm going to write it down here. That is your nasal bone, os nasals, that is over here. Understanding the medial wall of the orbit? Okay, so that concludes the walls of the orbit. So we have already seen all the walls of the orbit. That again, once again, just a quick revision. Superior wall is made by your frontal bone, right? And the minor ring of sphenoid bone. Just one second. Okay, so superior wall by the frontal bone, minor ring of sphenoid. Okay, and then the lateral wall. Lateral wall is by the zygomatic bone and the greater wing of sphenoid. Okay, and then we have the inferior wall, which is made by the orbital surface of maxilla. Okay, and you can also include zygomatic bone also here. Okay, because zygomatic bone is also contributing to half of the inferior margin. And then we have the palatine bone in the very back over here. A small part of the palatine bone is there. Then when going to the medial part, we have our ethmoid bone here. We have the lacrimal bone here. We have the maxilla bone here, nasal bone here, and don't forget the body of the sphenoid. Okay, this is the boundaries of orbital cavity. Okay, hopefully you're clear in this topic.